On this week's episode,
Sam gets ready for his big break and I just stand and watch.
Sam, we're filming this afternoon. Go to your trailer and go get ready, right?
7 hours later.
What's up, gang, and welcome to another week of Studio Life. On the last episode, we actually were pouring the Stargazer by Tanya Russell. It stands about 2.4, 2.8 meters tall, but we cast it in sections so it's easier to cast with the 60 kilo pot. Any bigger than that, then I think we might have a little bit of trouble. But if you just come over here, I'll show you all the bits that we cast yesterday and the day before. So these are all of our sections that we have to then weld together and try and keep as circular as possible. And as you can see, they've got this slight concave, and each section is like a jigsaw puzzle. We've got to try and put it all together, weld it, tack it, make sure that it's circular, and then once everything's all welded and ground back, we'll fettle it, get it ready for patina, and then we'll send it on its way. But I'm going to introduce you to Sam. Sam's going to be building the foundations on how to get this project off the ground. So we're going to start off with this meter by meter square base, and then we're going to just tack the two first sections on, and then work out from there. So I'm going to hand you over to Sam, and he's going to take you through his thought process of how this project gets started.
Hello, I'm Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam, and basically I'm here because I want to be your friend. Hot diggity dog.
So what I've done here to start off with is start building a reinforcing bar to go inside the sculpture and brace up the initial part of the curve. All the pressure initially will be down on the sculpture, so it needs a couple of bits of steel in. I've knocked up this very basic jig just to do the bending. It's pretty crude, but it does the job. I just incrementally bend the bar, and then that should go. As you can see, I've got quite a lot of lines here already. That's from the previous two rings, but somewhere in amongst all of those will be my middle point, and that's where this is going, something like that. First thing I need to do is weld on some spigots to create a starting point for the sculpture to sit on and be welded to. This will be where the base attaches to the ring and the most strength needs to be. 80, 120. Using a MIG welder with just a mild steel base plate here. I'm going to start tacking these on, getting it ready for assembly. Roughly right, and now I'm going to attach it to the base just as a starting point. give myself some idea of how we're going to start assembling the 7 pieces together in a circle. As you can see, we've cleaned these up prior after the casting process. We've knocked all of the ceramic shell off, cleaned them up as best as possible, just giving ourselves as much, doing as much of the sort of donkey work as possible before assembling the sculpture. And now I'm just going to start having a little look about assembly and how to get them on. Which one's which? By trial and error, basically. I mean, these two bottom pieces have a large cutout for the base of the sculpture. The reinforcing bar and the spigots will be attached to the bottom of this cast as best as possible. All the strength, all the main welding is going to be here. But first of all, it's a lot of tacking together, testing, chopping apart, just making sure it's right and it goes together properly before everything gets fully welded. You can see there's going to need to be just a little bit of fettling and cutting out just to bring this joint a bit closer together and a bit neater. Grind a little piece of this down and make this fit better. A bit like, it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, but obviously everything needs a little bit of adjustment just to fit as nice as, but the better the fit, the better the weld, the stronger the weld, the easier it is to build. I'm also just going to put a little chamfer on the edge of the bronze, and this creates a V shape and lays in a stronger weld. As you can see here, it's not perfect, but it's fitting together a lot nicer than before. That should be plenty enough for it to lay a good strong bronze weld with the TIG. So this, as you may or may not have seen before, is Rich's beast of a TIG welder. It's AC/DC, quite a box, quite a lump this one, but it's a good machine. What I'm going to do now is just drop a couple of tacks on the sculpture, have a little look at where I am and start going from there. I'm just going to block this up now, try and get the joint in the right position. It's kind of just preliminary, quite rough for now, and then it takes a lot of adjustment afterwards to get that to the right level, and that feels pretty good to me. This, for anyone that's not familiar, is a TIG welder. It's a bronze phosphorus rod, it's a filler material, and this is the torch. This provides the heat, melts the metal, and this adds the material, basically the essentials of welding. And I'm just going to lay a couple of tacks on to get it fixed. The beginning of this sculpture, the ring piece. From this point onwards, I'm going to be building up, I'm going to be attaching rests for the sculpture to take the weight. As I go up around the sculpture, it's going to be changed, braced and clamped, and gradually assembled and adjusted until finally we have a fairly good circle.
A few inches later.
Welcome back. As you can see, I've moved the ring along quite a lot already. It's gone quicker than usual this time. It's been nice to move it forward quickly. The process was essentially, once I built the reinforcing bar and started dropping some pieces on, I then used these stays screwed to the backboard just to support the sculpture as I went up. And I basically assembled it very quickly just to get an idea of how it was going to go together. And then I took a bit more care working it back up, tacking the pieces together, getting the circle right, standing back a lot. But yeah, we've arrived at a very good point now where the ring's complete. It's welded together pretty much, and I'm just going through all the areas and finishing up the welding. I'm beginning to patch in the access holes. So here, I'm just about to finish welding this. This has been cut out in order to access the base plate underneath and to make sure all the structural integrity has been fully welded up. So I'm just going to chuck the welder on and finish that up now. Just putting like some very small tacks halfway down to make sure it's nice and level and back in the place it wanted to be, rather than the piece doing this and tacking at each end. Just making my way through and getting it to fit where it needs to fit. So I'm going to use another tool in the arsenal to help me get that back down. Nice strong clamps there. Ready to weld up. I want to say TIG welding is actually one of the more refined forms of welding, and it's probably the closest I get to meditation. It's good to move the heat around the sculpture equally rather than concentrating solely in one area. It tends to warp and cause other problems. So I'm just going to do a bit up on the dog here with my little ladder. We're only going to need to drag the sculpture back and start accessing behind for the tidying up the welds. Oh, not much of mine, this. Oh no, because you can see much of mine.
You just tuck yourself in. Otherwise I feel a bit indecent.
Nice and strong.
And collapse.
Circle is one of the strongest shapes in geometry, and this is showing just as much. Still a bit wobbly though.
Yeah, but once
stiffen that up. Yeah, we've still got to flip it over and weld from underneath. Cool, cool.
So gang, let's just leave Sam there to finish up what he started. Over here, this is what we've been working on this week, and this is an urn that is going to be a part of a much bigger sculpture. This is going to be a part of a sculpture that involves the Mad Hatter and the Mad March Hare. This is going to be filled with water, and the two pieces are going to act as water features, and there's going to be a stainless steel bridge that just goes along the centre of the urn, and the two pieces are going to sit opposite one another, creating a really nice visual, and it's going to have some really nice flowers in there as well, and it's just going to create this lovely scene. But we've cast it in this beautiful light hamstone, and it's hamstone resin, so we painted the resin and the stone powder in first, and then Lisa and Lucas, they just laid up with fiberglass over the top, and they did about 5 layers, and it's creating like a sort of centimetre of thickness, so it is really robust. But all I'm doing now is I'm going around the edges with some more resin. I'm just thickening out this lip, if you like, just so it feels a little bit more substantial rather than it's having this frayed fiberglass edge. So I'm just going to mix up some more, and I'm just going to spatula it on and get this really nice shape. Then what I'll do is I'll just brush on some of this lovely stone resin, sand it back, blend it in, and then it's completo finito. So I'm just putting the two, one hardener, one resin. We mix the two together on this really expensive mixing pad. You can get these from Amazon or the woods. If you go to the woods, you might be able to make your own mixing pad. But this one I just found, it's a lot cheaper, but they're very inexpensive. Anyway, mix that up so it's all mixed in nice. Look at that. Lovely jubbly. So all I'm doing is I'm just getting a bit on the end of this tongue depressor, which these things are brilliant. Mixing sticks come handy in all sorts of processes, but this one in particular, I'm just going around it bit by bit, trying to create that lovely round sort of lip feeling. You must work fairly quick because this stuff does go off quite fast, especially in this sunshine, which we've been longing to have. So I'm just going around making sure that this is all looking nice and even. Once it's done and I'm happy with the thickness, I will go over it with some sandpaper, smooth it all down, and then go over it with that sort of stone powder resin as well. Starting to go off, I can actually form it a bit better by making it that lovely round lip vibe that we've got going on. Because whereas before it was a little bit runny and it wanted to drop down, and otherwise you're just constantly fighting it. So we're just going to keep rolling it around to the top, and as you can see, just get this sort of rounded edge. Right guys, so now I've put all the resin around the outside. I still need to do a little bit here, but I'm gonna let this go off, and then once it's gone off, I'm gonna sand it back, make it relatively smooth. But as you can see, the outside of this urn is quite rough and ready, like it's been carved out of a piece of stone. So actually it benefits from being a little bit rough around the edges, just so it's within keeping of the urn itself. But to the right of me, ladies and gents, is what we've been working on over the last couple of weeks, is that we've got this family of deer, and we made these frames that the deer then get welded onto. We had put stainless steel threads inside of the hoofs, and we've lined them up, we've squared them up, and we've welded them onto their frames. I've red oxide those frames, and then I'm going to spray them with a lovely hammerite paint so they're lovely and black, waterproof, and a little bit weather resistant, because these frames are going to be submerged into the ground, so you need as much protection as you possibly can when welding something of this nature. So now we've got all these three together, I think it'd be nice to show you these pieces as sort of as a collective. So we've got two female deers, one here and one here. So this is the mother, and then over here we've got the baby deer as well. So the baby deer gets its own frame, and the baby deer just slides in to its section like so. Sam welded these frames up, so it's a bit of like a jigsaw puzzle, if you like. and we worked out the distance between the baby's nose and the back of the leg, and then the mother's nose to the baby's backside, and then we just made up the frames in correlation with those measurements so that when they do slide in together, it's all looking nice. It's how the client likes the piece set. The mother's almost nurturing the baby, and that's the sort of feeling and the vibe that, you know, that she wants to give from this particular piece. You know, it's the first steps of the baby fawn. So this piece is a very popular piece, as I'm sure you can appreciate. And we've had some really nice photos of him in the field outside, and it just looks so natural. It looks so great. So our next job is to patinate these beauties, and they are going a traditional bronze. So we're going to go over with the burnt umbers, then we're going to go in the recesses with a load of dark dioxide, and we're really going to pull out all these lovely textures that Tanya's created on the surface of her deer. So the biggest thing with all of this work is the sheer amount of mess that it produces and how messy you get, and then the paints that you use. Many years I've just rushed into painting or patinating a piece and forget to put gloves on, and then you end up at the end of the day with just brown or black hands or painted hands. So now I take the time to put some gloves on. So to start off, we've got obviously our raw bronze resins. It's been fettled back, the seam lines have been blended in, amazingly done by Lisa over there. And so I go over it to get a real nice deep traditional bronze on a resin. I go over it with a burnt umber, okay, slightly watered down, and I use a rag to then drag away the top. So I apply it and I rub it back, so it's like an ambidextrous two-handed application. Once I've gone over the whole thing and I'm happy with the sort of uniform layer of the colour, then I tend to lacquer the whole piece just to secure that colour in place. Also, it gives it a bit of a UV protection when they're outside all year. And then once I've lacquered it, I then go over with a black dioxide, and that just drops in the recesses. I rub that back, the top, so then you're left with the lovely warmth of the burnt umber and then the darkness of the dark black dioxide. And then basically the lacquer also acts as a sort of a sealant, if you like, because if I just put black straight over brown, they merge together and it just looks minging. So the key is creating a layer that just is almost waterproof, so that when we do put a dark black dioxide on there, yeah, they don't merge. So I'm literally going to massage the paint into the work, really trying to flood all of the nooks and crannies, making sure all aspects of the work get covered. And then for the magic, ladies and gents, so I've got my rag in one hand, slightly scrunched up into a ball, yeah? Because if it's all scrunched up, and it can almost scratch the paint away. So I tend to just roll it up into a ball like so. Make sure all that's brushed in. And then I just go over the top like this, brushing the tops away, revealing that lovely bronze. It's been wire brushed before, so it's really revealed that bronzy shine, all the bronze powder that's in the resin. And I'm just rubbing back those tops, and it just gives you that lovely warmth. So I'm going to go over the whole piece, and then once it's dry, we'll lacquer. So I'm just using the cloth to just sort of brush back the excess that I may have missed, because like it pulls in areas as the paint drips down into these nooks and crannies. It just pulls and it gets a bit thick and you can't really dry it. So I just go along and I just brush it back, so it just gives a nice even colour, and it really is bringing that warmth through. It's looking really, really nice. Darks in the recesses, the bronze shining through, but this is going to pop even more once we put that dark wash on, ladies and gents. I'm going to get myself some lacquer, and then I'm going to cover the whole piece. So gang, I've got this clear lacquer here. It's an acrylic lacquer satin finish. You can get matte finishes, you can get glossy finishes, but I like to use the old satin finish. It's smooth as silk. So I'm going to go over it and I'm just going to spray the whole piece. Always make sure if you're playing with fumes or solvents, wear a mask.